Hello there, beautiful souls and beautiful humans. I am delighted to be here with you today. Whether you're on Facebook or you catch this later on YouTube, you are in the right place if you want to know the secret to co-creating world peace. Yes, I am RozyGlow Hannes, and yes, I have decided to approach this huge subject and to go straight to the heart of it and inspire hope in every individual who wants to believe it's possible and who wants to train your eyes, your perception to be able to see it and to co-create it into reality. So if you are liking the sound of this, thank you so much for joining my community. Thank you so much for subscribing, hitting the likes, hitting the loves, commenting. Anytime you hear me say something that blows your mind, please do share a comment, share an emoji, share your thoughts, share your feelings. This is our co-creation together. So I'm going to go through three key things. And I have come to this conclusion as a result of all the work that I have done, both in the pre-conception, conception, pregnancy, birth, and early parenting world, when I was once upon a time a yoga teacher who specialized in all things fertility, pregnancy, birth, and babies, all the way through to working with toddlers and children's yoga and teen yoga and seeing the impact of early life on who we actually become. And even whether it's easy or not for us to conceive and what kind of pregnancy we have and what kind of birth we have and what kind of experience we have of breastfeeding and actually looking after our young, even what kind of relationships we have. And this led me into my coaching world, becoming now we can call ourselves transformational coaches, metaphysical coaches, empowerment coaches, sacred union coaches, you name it. For me, this is all about us knowing that we can actually shift our perception of reality. And as we shift our perception of reality, we actually shift our experience. So you may have heard the term perception is reality, and 90% of the time that's actually true. We're all living a subjective version of reality. We have our own virtual reality goggles on. And most of us have bought into the paradigm that has been the last 9,000 years of patriarchy so compellingly that we believe nothing else is possible. But, you know, if you're here in my community, you're here because you are a starseed, you're a light worker, you're an empath. Perhaps you don't know that yet, but that's okay. Welcome. This is what I'm here to support you to see. You know, enlightenment is actually nothing out there. It's about us bringing the light of our soul into our bodies. And you'll see when I go into the first point, that is one of the three keys to creating peace on earth, just how important the soul is. So I'm going to get on without further ado, because I want to keep this short. And, you know, I'm then going to let you know about a few exciting things that are happening, because ultimately everything that I do is dedicated to co-creating peace on earth. You may not have already seen the Star Peace movement in the website, so check out www.starpeaceconsciousness.com if you haven't already. We'll put this in the text box. This is where there's a manifesto that you can sign up for if you like the sound of it and you'd like to see the world get co-created in that direction. There's also some beautiful ways that you can contribute to co-creating peace on earth as the narrative in the collective consciousness of humanity. It's all about how we show up, what we energize through our words, our actions, our thoughts, our intentions, and what we listen to and what we watch and what we talk about. This is what is in our conscious control. And if you're new to my coaching work, conscious mind alignment is step 3 of my 6-step process, which is the co-creation process, which teaches those who are ready to live as their highest selves, as their whole soul selves here on this planet. So I'll weave all of that in as we go, but let's actually set the scene. So the secret to world peace, what it takes to shift from fear to trust, hate to love, struggling to thriving. Well, you know, for many of us, when you think about the world, what is peace? I often think of it as the absence of war, right? But I, of course, Googled it just to see what peace actually comes up as a definition. So there's 2 terms here. 1, freedom from disturbance, tranquility. 2, a state or period in which there is no war or a war has ended. So, you know, war is a characteristic of not being at peace. But let's also consider the idea that peace is about an inner state of calm, tranquility, an inner state of harmony, if you like, where we're not ruffled, we're not in a state of anxiety, we're not in a state of fear or stress. And this will make more sense as we get going. So, you know, allow yourself, please, to just consider for you, what does peace mean? And if you've got a notebook and pen, then why not write stuff down? Because you're going to have some really nice epiphanies as we work with this. Now, those of you who are actually here, say hello. I can see Jen's there and Anne's there. So welcome, welcome, welcome. I would love to know what you make of all of this. So The secret to world peace, how we co-create collective reality here on planet Earth that aligns us with thriving rather than surviving and reactivates the Paradise Earth codes, the original blueprint for this Earth. Now, you might not believe that, but certainly, you know, why not choose to believe it? What would Paradise Earth look like? We've all got creation stories that have come about through the various religions that, you know, have come about to this Earth. I know for most of us, we're all concerned to find the truth of our existence, and the truth of our existence really is love. I mean, if we come to the origins of this planet, as I understand it, this planet was meant to be a living library for all of the creatures in our universe. Like, think like that place in Star Wars where you had all of the different extraterrestrials, the aliens all gathering together. It was like a trading place. Well, this was meant to be a living library. That's what I've heard on one level, and that really resonated. And on another level, I also heard that, you know, this is meant to be the only planet of choice within this galaxy, potentially within this universe too. So if you don't know yet how star peace got activated in my consciousness, I woke up on the 31st of October 2020, back when we were in the thick of the fear pandemic, with boom, 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 a voice in my head that said, RozyGlow, in our universe, the light has won. Star Wars is over. It's time for star peace. Go forth and spread this message. And I was like, all right. You know, when I get these kind of messages, I don't generally go with them straight away and go, yes, sir, I'm going to go ahead and do that. Or yes, whatever, I'm going to go and do that. Typically, I argue with it and go, maybe you've lost your mind again. But actually, you know, when we let go of that human doubt and we access our soul truth, we get to see that there are all sorts of potentials that we can energize. There are infinite timelines. So the timeline that I'm offering you is the timeline where peace has been declared in our universe, our whole universe. All of the galaxies that are in agreement override the galaxies that are not in agreement. So there's more galaxies that have come together to say, yes, we want oneness over duality, than there are those that wanted duality over oneness. So I saw a second vision after I saw this first one a little while later, that all of the warships in our universe were actually all queuing up. They've been decommissioned. There was this huge black hole over here as all these warships were queuing up to leave. It was like an amnesty. Go now, and then there won't be consequences. So for duality to continue, for war to continue, it ain't happening in our universe, okay? It's happening off universe in another reality, where those who want to continue to grow and learn, the souls that want to grow and learn through conflict and through struggle and stress, can carry on their story. So then you're going to say to me, well, why is there still war on this planet? You know, the whole thing that's happened with the Ukraine, you know, there's so much that's been going on. And I know there's a lot that's being talked about in terms of what's going to be happening over the next few months as well. If you turn on the terrestrial TV, if you turn on the radio, you'll be compelled to believe that peace definitely hasn't been declared in our universe. But I'm here to assure you it has. It's almost like Earth hasn't received the memo yet, right? So as a result of that, what's happening is we're playing out this old story, because it's kind of happening as a dying swan song, for want of a better word. But for us to activate the peace codes here on this planet, we actually need to activate them in us. We need to awaken them within us. And this is part of the third point, the third secret that I'll talk about shortly. So yes, it has been declared. It's a bit like light years. It takes a while to pass the message here on Earth, but we get to co-create it through shifting our behavior, our mindset, our expectations, through our co-creations, our manifesting, our law of attraction, and just through our resonance, okay? So do you believe at this point that peace on Earth is actually possible? Not as an ideology, but as a global reality. It's important. I want you to tell me, if you're watching this, do you believe it's possible? Because if you don't believe it's possible, there's no way we can co-create it. So is it possible that we can create peace on Earth? Let me know. And in this, we will be looking at the idea that families are characterized by harmony, respect, and unconditional love, compassion, forgiveness, a sense of consciousness that overrides any of the behavior that would lead to disharmony and therefore conflict and therefore war. Imagine a world where nations prioritize diplomacy over conflict, where we seek resolution, where disputes are resolved through dialogue rather than violence. I have some ceremonial cacao here in this cup, and I know that I've heard the story that, you know, in days of old, when cacao was rife as the food of the gods, when there were tribes that went to war, what that actually meant was they'd sit in a cave together, okay, and drink cacao and stay there until they resolved their conflict, until they were able to see each other's point of view to such a degree that they could create a harmonic decision, something that worked for everybody, that allowed the individuals to continue to experience what they seek to experience without it actually impacting on others. Now, we have this issue. For me, peace really means loving ourselves, loving each other, loving the planet. The way my mum used to describe it is don't harm yourself, don't harm each other, don't harm the planet. So that's a sort of negative, right? But, you know, what does it mean to love ourselves? I would say it means not to abandon, reject, or betray ourselves. So it's about accepting ourselves. It's about allowing ourselves to exist as we are. It's about bringing our shadow and our light into unity consciousness. When we start to deal with things like, you know, obviously, those who seek to dominate in order to feel safe, those who seek to dominate others according to their ideologies, we know here there is an imbalance in the first place that needs to be addressed. There is a conflict there because there is no resolution between the shadow and the light. And as we change our frequency, that changes outside of us too. So just hold that. Please suspend disbelief if you believe it ain't possible right now. It does work. I've seen it in so many different scenarios. So imagine a world where generations come together, not in conflict, but in celebration of our differences, learning from one another's experience and supporting each other's growth. It may seem far-fetched, but it is possible. In this episode, so what I'm going to do today is go through the foundations for making it reality. We don't believe it's possible because war, struggle, and suffering has been a reality for so many for what seems like an eternity. And you know what? That memory of conflict, of war, of struggle literally gets passed from one generation to the next. It's unprocessed trauma that really is in our epigenetic profile, okay? Our perception is influenced by what hasn't been processed from previous generations. And this is what our ego identity is, our survival programming, which I'll go into in a moment. So this hasn't always been the case, though. Our cellular memory does hold the codes for peace. We just need to access and activate them. So how we do this is what I will share on this live. So what do I mean by that? I mean, somewhere in our history, if you follow our bloodlines as far back as you can imagine, there was a time when conflict didn't exist. So we can go into the archives of our cellular memory and reactivate those dormant peace codes. That's why we're here. That's why star seeds are here. This is why light workers are here. But we kind of bought into the illusion when we get here. We forget. I mean, this whole cloak of amnesia thing's like, why on earth did this start to happen? This is part of the matrix. This idea that, you know, part of our soul's growth is that we'll come here, we'll forget that we know everything that we know, and, you know, we'll test ourselves to see whether or not we can remember it again. Now, if you look at it like that, it can be an empowering thing. But the idea that we're just going to forget every time we incarnate on this earth what we have previously mastered seems like a bit of a slow way round, right? But it's how we kind of reintegrate back into oneness, into unity consciousness with the divine, with absolute certainty that we are the divine. Because if we forget a million times and we remember a million times, eventually we're going to remember as we come onto this planet again and we reincarnate. Yeah, it's by default, it's going to need to happen. But the cloak of amnesia that typically we have learnt to believe is what happens when we incarnate, when we reincarnate from one soul experience to another. So when you've heard of past lives, you'll know what I mean. Yeah, it's this idea that somehow it levels us all up. But there are those who are coming to this earth and remembering their previous incarnations. And I just want to say here, because this is important, is that we have bloodline memories and we have soul memories. So for most of us, the memories that we hold until we've actually activated our soul consciousness are our bloodline memories. Occasionally we'll have dreams of past lives that are soul memories, but typically we're remembering the stories of our ancestors, and most of us are living those stories because we haven't cleared them from our cellular memory. So we're living them out until they're brought to our consciousness and we make a different choice. This is why reprogramming our subconscious is so important. It's a foundation of the work I do. Let's get to these 3 points. So first of all, we're covering the role of our earliest influences, something I just mentioned, the role of the imagination, and the role of our vibrational frequency. So let's go to the first one, the essential role that conscious conception, pregnancy, birth, and parenting plays in the co-creation of world peace. Hello, those who are joining, let me know anything that's coming up. I'd love to know who else is here. So our earliest conditioning starts from preconception. We need to be wired to thrive rather than survive in order to actually create peace on earth. So what does this mean? So in simple terms, and this is my expertise from the pre-birth work that I've done, preconception work, the egg that is released this month, that makes a baby this month, is programmed according to the environmental conditions of 3 to 4 months ago. There's a time lag. The sperm that makes the that conceives and meets the egg and conceives is conditioned according to the environmental or stress factor conditions of 2 to 3 months ago. So, you know, you see why it's important to take time to prepare to grow a baby. It's not just about let's come off the pill, let's, you know, stop using condoms, let's just start making baby. Getting healthy is essential. Everyone I know says a minimum of 6 months. I would say a year. Because the moment, from my point of view, that we really become parents is the moment we think about having a baby. This starts the journey. And in an ideal world, we'd all be learning from our school days, even from our parents, how to have conscious, loving, respectful, sacred union relationships, where we're actually in harmony with ourselves. We have partners whose values are in resonance with ours, and we're on the same page. We're not trying to convince each other of our union. Okay, so think about this. How many people around you do you know that have really, really happy and healthy relationships? For me now, most of the people I see around me, I see happy and healthy relationships. I see beautiful souls who are the masculines, who are wonderful, like my husband, and beautiful souls who are feminines, who are like me. Why is that? Because I have repatterned my early conditioning, which was very unhealthy. It was immature love. It was love based on jealousy, need, codependency. And therefore, most of us have that kind of experience. If you turn a TV on and you watch a TV series, the typical ones that most of us watch, there's all sorts of unhealthy foundations for relationships in those. And this is the point. For us to actually start to co-create peace on earth, we must look at this preconception, pre-birth time, and create the most wonderful conditions possible. What does that mean? That means that we create the conditions where a mother and father to be are supported, they feel well supported, well nourished, well nurtured, where they are thriving themselves. They have plenty of whatever resources they need materially, time, money, support, love, vibrant health. Can you imagine? And they also learn how to consciously communicate with their unborn children before they even come into the womb, and then once they're in the womb as well. Now, once this is done, what happens is the womb space is the first home of this embryo that becomes a fetus, that then becomes a baby, right? And what happens then is, because the conditions are optimal, the parasympathetic nervous system is dominant. That's the fight, flight, freeze. Sorry, no, it's not. It's the rest, repair, tend and mend side of things. So this side is basically what allows us to feel safe to procreate. And as a result of that, the neocortex, the frontal part of the brain, grows more than the back part of the brain. We become wired to thrive rather than survive because we feel safe in this womb space. Now, if the conditions are not optimal, what this means is we're then wired to survive rather than thrive. And, you know, there's been a huge, burst in neurodivergence and neurodiversity, which on the one hand is absolutely amazing that we're now starting to accept we're all different, because we are. We also want to look at the effect of stress in pregnancy and how that affects brain development, cognition, our capacity to form healthy relationships, our capacity to self-refer, which needs to be modeled to us, our capacity to be emotionally intelligent. We can only ever be what has been modeled to us, right? So in this sense, it is essential that we do make the switch from survival programming, which is fight, flight, freeze. We wake up every day with a million things on our mind. We're stressed. We're fighting to get to work. We're on the commuter train. You know, we feel cramped. We feel like we don't have enough time for ourselves, and there's an endless list of things to do. We're not sure if our partner's on the same page as us. They don't seem to be very interested in us. We're always fighting for their attention. It just seems like there's always something, some mountain to climb. Now, this might not seem that different to your day-to-day reality, but that's low-level chronic stress. And it is massively increased anytime you turn the TV on, the radio on, anytime you read a newspaper. Pop culture is energizing it too, because that's the collective narrative of humanity. We are in survival programming as a collective consciousness in humanity. The people that are currently running the world are not very well. They're traumatized. They're fourth, fifth gen, how long ago was the First and Second World War? Then let's talk about genocides. Let's talk about civil wars. This is in all of our ancestral history. Do you think that they overcame that? No, they didn't. They didn't have the tools to. It's only now, today, that we have the tools that everyone could overcome their early influences, could overcome the trauma that they inherited from their ancestors and their self-experienced trauma. It's only now that we have this available, but we do have it. So it's time we use it. So all those beings that maybe are the powers that should not be, and I'm not going to mention any of their names, but just remember a couple of years ago in the thick of the fear-demic, they were all pretty prolific. It's those who are behind the World Economic Forum, those who are behind the UN, the Agenda 30, Agenda 21, those who, tell us that, we'll own nothing and we'll be happy. Those who tell us that they have the solution to health and well-being, whereas when you look at them, they don't look very healthy at all. And what they're doing is they're profiting from the things they put on us and in us that are not very well. Read between the lines, you know what I'm talking about. There's a whole load of that stuff and putting in us and all over us in our environment. These people, not well, not the philanthropists that actually really do what's best for us. In fact, whether they're even really human is another thing, because they've been taken over because the trauma is so intense. And I'm saying this knowing that some of them might be watching this, but ultimately, if the shadow and the light is not integrated, then the shadow will dominate the light. I'll say that again. If the shadow and the light is not integrated, the shadow will dominate the light. Now, this isn't just on this physical reality on this earth. Imagine that we're all puppets, and in the non-physical world around us, in our universe and beyond our universe, there are those, let's just say, nefarious intent aliens, non-nefarious intent extraterrestrials, star families, those beings that have already evolved beyond war in their own vicinities, their own constellations, their own homes, whether that's Sirius, whether that's Pleiades, whether that's Lyra, wherever it may be, the different constellations. Basically, we're being influenced. If we're more integrated, we're being influenced by the light beings, the ETs. If we're less integrated, we're being influenced by the non-light beings, the ones that want to stay in the conflict. So it is very important, coming back to this idea of creating the best conditions for thriving, that we look at conscious union, relationships that are nurturing and nourishing. We look at preparing the nest, feathering the nest for a baby to be conceived. So a mother and father are healthy emotionally, physically, psychologically, and spiritually. Their soul is intact. We also bring to this the fact that if we have a lack of connection to our soul self, which is our eternal nature, this is at the root of all suffering on our planet. As we identify with our ego programming or survival conditioning, our false identity rather than our authentic truth. Those who currently run the world, as we said, are severely traumatized, birth trauma, unprocessed intergenerational trauma, time in the womb, and early life trauma. Most of us don't think of the impact of our birth and our immediate post-birth influences, that first moment after we're born. Were we separated from our mother? Were we taken to a nursery? Were we in an incubator? Did we have to be poked and prodded? Did we have an operation? How long was it till we were put on the chest, till our breath was regulated, our temperature was regulated by our mothers? Were we ever allowed to sleep with our mum and dad? All this stuff plays a big part. And you might think that this is all dangerous stuff that I'm talking about. It isn't. Okay, this is how we've got to this point in humanity where we still exist. It's not the latest advances in technology in the last three generations regarding maternity services and birth. All right. So aside from sanitation and obviously how that made a huge difference in the last couple of centuries, before that, we kind of knew what we were doing, right? We knew what we were doing. So what I want to say here is that I started my journey in this work through rebirthing as a teenager. I was a very, very unhappy teenager myself. I was suicidal, didn't want to be on this planet. I was overweight. And thankfully, a friend of my mum had the insight to suggest I worked with a particular woman, Senawe Fasefo, who is Samoan, but she lived in Singapore. And she ran a center there where I got involved, and I had the experience of how my birth impacted my experience of life. I thought I was going to die. I didn't feel safe in this world, and that characterized my whole early life journey. So what I would say to you is this: in order for you to know whether you're wired to survive or thrive, ask yourself this question. Is self-doubt, fear, struggle, stress, lack consciousness a part of your reality? Does this dominate your internal dialogue? Does the need to dominate others, to control everything in order to feel safe also play a part in your life? Because this will tell you that you are sympathetic nervous system rather than parasympathetic nervous system dominant. Parasympathetic nervous system, again, being rest, repair, feed and breed, tend and mend. This is how we thrive rather than survive. So that's the first point. Taking care of this earliest time, okay, would actually wire us to thrive rather than survive. And then we have all of the tools on this earth to deal with the ancestral influences, the epigenetic influences that impact our well-being and our perception of the world. Do you know that only 3% of illness is actually genetic? 3% of disease is genetic. The rest is stress induced. It's activated by stress factors, 97%. That's insane. That starts from before conception, as I said. Please remember that. If you've got that, send me a little like, let me know you've got it in the comments, and let's move on. Step 2. Now, this is where my passion for the entertainment industry plays a part. Our brain cannot tell the difference between what is real and what is imagined. So this is the second secret. When we worry about things that can happen, we're actually creating a stress response in the body, just like when we watch stressful and scary things on screen. So if we use this in the positive, imagine a world where war does not exist, where no human or animal goes hungry, where there is a balance between humanity and nature, technology and science, where everyone is loved, taken care of and supported, where we are allowed to create, this allows us to create a physiological response where this seems like a reality. We activate our parasympathetic nervous system. This strengthens our immune system, helps us to have a positive outlook on life and believe that life is for us rather than against us. What we focus on grows. So long as we create the feeling of safety within, we can co-create the frequency of peace. So this is the second one, right? Okay, it's really, really important to understand that the way our brain works is perceiving and processing data all of the time. The neocortex, so you've got the hypothalamus, the HPA, hypothalamus pituitary adrenal gland axis, is looking all of the time for signs of, is there danger? Am I safe? Is there danger? Am I safe? And what we perceive as danger comes from our mother's perception, that came from her mum's perception, that came from her mum's perception, which obviously was influenced by dad and the environment and society, culture, religion, etc., socioeconomic status. When we're in the womb, we're like, mum's a periscope passing information to the baby. Get wired to survive my perception of the reality that you're going to be born into. Okay, that's what happens. So what can we actually do with this? Well, if the brain cannot tell the difference between what is real and what is imagined, and currently that is what we understand, then we have a big thing we can do, and that is to do with the entertainment that we consume. It's one thing for life to be stressful, right? It's another thing what we choose to watch, listen to, and read for our own entertainment. Now, if your time in the womb was adrenaline dominant rather than oxytocin dominant, I absolutely bet your bottom dollar that you are going to be attracted to things on the screen that are going to activate adrenaline in your body. Now, if you felt particularly traumatized, maybe you'll have an aversion to it, like I do. You don't like watching horror movies. You don't like watching thrillers. You don't like watching the bang, bang, bang movies. You don't like watching crime stuff. You don't like watching stuff that is about the wars. It's really off-putting, but so many people. What do you watch for your entertainment? My husband's a fireman, or a retired fireman. Every time I go into the living room, there's something bang, bang, bang action thriller on. He loves it. For him, he doesn't really notice it because he's been desensitized, as most of us have. That doesn't mean it's not affecting us physiologically, or it hasn't done. So one of the key things we need to understand is entertainment plays a huge part in whether we continue to be wired to survive or whether we can be reprogrammed to be wired to thrive. So what we watch, listen to, and read has the potential to re-educate us, to take us to our pain point and then take us to pleasure. So when you see an abusive relationship on screen, for example, and then you see a woman or a man find the strength to leave that relationship, to actually get hold of the support that's required, to make the changes in themselves that make them believe they're worthy of something more than that, then you can take the person who's watching it, who has a similar life situation, and show them that there is a way out. And these are the key points that they're going to need to focus on in order to create that way out. Now, there are TV series, for example, in England, we have EastEnders, we have Coronation Street. There's all sorts of others. I mean, they're the ones that come to mind because I used to watch EastEnders when I was much younger. Always ends on a cliffhanger. Always the worst behavior in humanity. Might have changed, but that's what I remember. Everyone's cheating on each other. Everyone's swindling each other. Everyone's, threatening each other. It's the worst of the worst. Everyone's struggling. And when you're watching that for entertainment 3 times a week, what do you think that is doing to you? It's creating more and more of an expectation of that in your life, that is the norm. My biggest bugbear is actually how birth is portrayed. Not only that, how conception is portrayed, how we give our power away to the medical profession when we're pregnant through what we see on screen. Oh, the doctor said I had to be induced, so I was induced. Oh, the doctor put me on the bed, so I get on the bed. Oh, the doctor said that this might have happened. Oh, I must have my scan to know I'm pregnant. Oh, I must do this ovulation test in order to know I'm ovulating. When did we get so far away from knowing our own bodies, knowing the power within us? When have you ever seen on screen a woman not give birth on her back, pushing like she's going to lose her eyeballs? It is time we start to change the way birth and pregnancy and relationships and conception are portrayed on screen. You know why? It will change our expectations as humanity as to what is normal. So what we see on screen is what we perceive is normal. All of us get to choose, unless you're watching terrestrial TV. If you've got Netflix, you've got other streaming systems, can choose what you watch. So what do you watch? What do you watch for fun? Is it serving you to thrive or survive? And what could we do with entertainment? Because I truly believe that life imitates art. So we need to make that art good. All around you, you're seeing different symbols, different signs. All around you, you're getting information. We process so much more than we perceive. So if you had messages all around you, positive messages on billboards, positive messages as adverts, like most of us know that adverts are full of lies, right? I was watched something just briefly yesterday before I said to my husband, turn it off. Why are we watching this? Literally one advert after another was toxic chemicals, sprays on your body, and then air fresheners that you put into your home. Oh, this smells nice. Oh, iconic smells. Oh, great. Yes, I'll just put these toxic chemicals on me that are gender bending chemicals, endocrine disruptive chemicals, gender bending chemicals. Yes, that's what we should do. That's what most humans do, right? Well, I say most in the Western world who watch TV. So just be aware of this because it's huge. The role that entertainment has in shaping our reality, both in expectations of birth and portrayed on screen, as portrayed on screen, human behavior, and also whether we're plugging into adrenaline, which is our survival circuitry, or oxytocin, which is our nurturing and nourishing circuitry, are basically going to be defining our experience. So there is also the role of intention, visualization, co-creation. I am present, which is your source self. Tell me this. How often do you actually imagine a world where there is peace on this planet, where there is no conflict, where the wars have ended? Is anyone here who's watching this, and tell me if you have, taken time to meditate on the idea that there is no longer a war in the Ukraine, that there are no more problems going on in terms of Russia and the rest of the world, that peace has been restored? Anyone ever done that? Let me know. I know I haven't, so I'm just sharing that. So when we actually allow ourselves to know what we don't want, we can work out what we do want. So when we intend something different other than what we see, and we stop talking about how horrible everything is and how terrible everything is and what awful things are going to happen next, we actually create a new narrative. And that is another part of how we contribute to world peace. It's how we talk about what's going on, what we energize. Remember, what you focus on grows. What you think about, you become. Yeah? What you energize, you create in your life. This is very, very important for us to remember. Next, this is the third point, okay? The final point that I'm going to make today. We create world peace through activating our personal peace. This is actually the key. So when Star Peace came to me as a concept, it was both the inspiration and the destination. So how do we actually create world peace? Well, we get inspired to believe it's possible. And then we go about a process, which I'm going to talk about in a moment. So through activating our personal peace, this energizes Star Peace, which is both inspiration and outcome. Most of us think we need to fight for world peace. to do something outside of us rather than inside of us first. Now, I'm not saying we don't actually need to interact with the world and put pressure on change in things that currently exist. Of course we do, but it's what your energy is aligned with before you actually go about doing it. Are you in a state of separation, conflict, anger, rage yourself? Are you in a state where you haven't created a sense of integration within you and actually held the vision of the outcome, the solution that you want before you go about trying to change things on the outside? Your vibration is key. It is everything. Your vibration determines what happens around you. Just think about it. We all know people who suck the joy out of a room, right? We all know what it's like to be around someone who's struggling or feeling depressed or anxious. We all know what it's like when you're around someone who's angry. You feel it, right? You can feel when there's something around you. Now, what about when you're around people that you just love to be around? They're a breath of fresh air. Just being around them, just seeing their smile uplifts you. That's the change. That's what we get to be. So when it comes to world peace, it all comes from personal peace, shifting our own vibration, because we are energetic beings. We are a vibrational frequency. Okay, we have electromagnetic frequencies we radiate out. There's man-made ones and there's human ones. So when you're in a resonance that is peace, you create peace around you. Those who don't want peace walk away. When you're in a resonance of conflict, you attract conflict. Birds of a feather flock together. This is law of attraction. Please also remember, though, that, you know, your conscious mind is only 5% as effective as your subconscious, your unconscious mind. So your conscious mind might want peace, but all of your unconscious is totally plugged into and resonating with drama, with stress, with conflict, with fear, with war, with struggle, because that's all you know. So a little bit of the time, things are as you want, but most of the time, you're actually pulling in the circumstances, the people that will resonate with the conflict rather than the harmony and the solution. That's why we do need to do something about it if our internal resonance, our unconscious, subconscious, is not in resonance with our conscious mind intentions. So for want of a better word, we have three consciousnesses, or four. You have unconscious, subconscious, conscious, and superconscious. So your unconscious, you could say, is like the collective unconscious. It's the ancestral stories. It's the what you've inherited that you don't even know you've inherited. I'm simplifying. Your subconscious is really a record of all of your own experiences that you probably don't remember, but they form a basis for your strategies for being in this world. Things that you've directly experienced, or things that your parents experienced when you were in the womb, etc., are preparing you to be a certain way. They form your personality. They form the way you actually show up in this world, how you get the attention that you actually want and need, how you guarantee you'll be taken care of. So, you know, we can't remember everything that's happened to us, but we form expectations based on our experiences, and that's your subconscious. Your conscious mind, and it's in control 95% of the time, by the way. Yeah. So your conscious mind is your will, your desire, what you actually want, and you can speak it and you can say, I want this. Your superconscious is your higher self-consciousness. Your superconscious is your soul consciousness. And as I said, the first point is that we're all disconnected from our soul consciousness. We're not taught how to actually live in alignment with our soul truth, how to stay connected to our soul once we're conceived. Okay, and that can come from our parents. The second point that I mentioned was about how our expectations actually affect our reality. So our brain can't tell the difference between what is real and what is imagined, and therefore what we focus on, we create more of in our lives because our bodies respond to it and create a physiological response. The third point is very much about us basically becoming the vibrational point that we want to see in this world. So being peace in order to create peace. Now, what is needed for us to be peace is the creation of the feeling vibration of safety. It's the opposite of doubt. When we don't feel safe, we access the lower part of the brain, the survival mechanism programming. We cannot outcreate what we did yesterday, what has already happened in the past, because we cannot create a new point of reference. So if we keep looking back to history to determine our future, guess what you're going to do? You're going to create more of history, more of the same. That's why when we defer to thinking, trying to think our way out of solutions without activating our imagination, we can only ever create more of the past. That's why war keeps happening, conflict keeps happening, because everyone's trying to find solutions based on using their brains rather than their soul consciousness and their heart, right? So the journey that I take my clients through is from brain thinking into creating safety in the body, which is essential to pacify the sympathetic nervous system and activate the parasympathetic nervous system. And then we can access our heart consciousness. What do I want to feel? How do I want to experience life? And then we can bring in our soul consciousness and be guided by the eternal part of us, not our ego identity, which is our false identity, but our authenticity, which is our eternal truth. Like the sound of that? Give me a little like. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So we're destined to create more of the past unless we activate our imagination and actually allow ourselves to create something new in the future. But in order to be able to do that successfully, we actually have to go through a process. So, you know, the neocortex, front part of the brain, the limbic systems, the emotional part of the brain, the reptilian brains, the fight flight response, you know, am I safe, am I not? We need to create safety in our circuitry. So how do we change this? How do we create the conditions that will create peace on earth? Well, in my experience, it's threefold, okay? It's learning how to co-create a reality consciously, so that's manifesting practices, mindset practices, so how we perceive whatever's going on in the world, and also it's about detoxing and reprogramming our subconscious, so it's in alignment with our mindset and our manifesting intentions, right? The law of attraction can only work for us if that subconscious is in resonance with the conscious and the superconscious. So what does this mean? We detoxify and reprogram our subconscious mind and align our conscious and subconscious mind with our superconscious soul self. Your perception determines your experience. Perception is reality 90% of the time. What you think, you become. What you talk about and focus on, you energize. What you believe subconsciously, you end up with a confirmation bias for. Whether you want it or not, safety is created within by knowing what to expect next, even if it is undesirable or uncomfortable. The body would rather be right than successful. And this is why confirmation bias and why we keep going back to stressful, doubt, ego identity, survival programming as our reality rather than our soul self. Hence why our comfort zone isn't really a comfort zone. It's actually a familiar zone. So we have to break through that familiar zone. We have to expand it. We have to grow beyond it. We have to ask, what else is there other than what I know? You know, when I went from attracting men who weren't really a match for me, they didn't share the same values as me, they weren't interested in what I wanted. They were more kind of hooking onto my light rather than shining their light next to me. I was always attracting Mr. Unavailable, Mr. Not That Interested, Mr. Uncommitted, because that was my profile. That was what my dad was to my mum. You know, that was really in many ways, even though my stepdad and my mum had a good relationship for some years, as my mum and dad did, there was still this sense of so many unmet needs in these adults that I knew, that they were self-obsessed rather than able to really support each other to thrive because they felt that they were thriving inside. So, you know, the profile that I had for a relationship, what love was really unhealthy. And I had to go through a process of detoxing and reprogramming my subconscious, getting clear on what it is I wanted to experience, creating a new vibrational frequency in me, setting that frequency, maintaining it, challenging it until it's stuck. And then I could be in resonance to receive my beautiful sacred union, divine counterpart, ascension partner, who is now my husband of 3 years, the lovely Ian Buzz Hannes. So ultimately, the secret to creating personal peace is shift your vibration and you shift the collective vibration. You move out of victim mode, which is survival mode, and separation from source mode, into living on this earth as a divine human, as a conscious human, as a being who has your soul consciousness intact and can access previous lifetimes, soul memories, and also clear the bloodline memories of the trauma, which we basically call karma, because we repeat this trauma again and again and again until someone comes to this earth that is an evolved enough soul to go, hey, there must be something else than this. I'll seek out the healing. And then as a result of that, because we've sought the healing out, we then go about actually sharing it with others. That's exactly what I do as a coach. So those are the 3 secrets. Those are the 3 key points. Yeah, it's shifting your vibration. It's remembering that your brain can't tell the difference between what is real and what's imagined. And it's also about dealing with those early life influences. Those 3 things would get us away from constantly recreating the pain of the past and create a new reality in the future. This is something that you like the sound of. Awesome, because I've got a couple of masterclasses that are coming up. I decided to do one on the 15th, which is next Friday. And we're going to call this doubt to certainty, living your soul truth, and what that actually means. So within that, I'll be looking at how you can actually shift from your ego self to your divine self. What are practical ways you can start to make a start in your reality today, so you can build up the muscle of thriving rather than surviving, and get yourself to the next place when you are ready to take the next leap of faith. Because none of these things just happen because you say. They happen because you challenge your status quo. They happen because you challenge what you know, and you're willing to take a risk beyond what you know. So you're willing to step beyond your familiar zone, and therefore embark on a journey that's going to teach you how to actually show up in this world differently. And when you're ready for that kind of journey, that's when people like me show up, because we're the coaches who offer the subconscious programming and clearing, reprogramming, and clearing and reprogramming. We offer the mindset shifts. We offer the manifesting secrets that are required to be able to see the world in the way that you want to create it. And, you know, there are different ways that people do this. For me, I have a program called Fearless, Loved Up and Limitless. That is all about clearing the subconscious and reprogramming it. I also have a program called Liberation from Limitation, which is all about challenging your expectations in terms of your conscious mind expectations. And I also offer one-to-one work, which is all to do with pre-birth influences, and also activating your superconscious if you prefer to work with me. And particularly if you're someone who's an influencer, you're a leader, you're in the entertainment industry, and you want to use your influence, you want to use your fame, you want to use, you know, the financial influence that you have as well, because, you know, the most powerful people in this world are people with a lot of money and a good intention, to actually create change on an unprecedented scale on this planet. That's what my one-to-one work is about. So high impact individuals who are ready to make the very most of the resources they have and create the most phenomenal impact, stratospheric impact in this world. If that isn't you, it's okay, because we cover that on a level that's right for you in the Fearless, Loved Up and Limitless program. And it's about shifting your health, wealth, your relationship status, your connection to this world, and actually really activating your soul consciousness, your soul purpose. So that first masterclass will really be looking at how to go from the version of us that is struggling to the version of us that is thriving, and what that actually takes. And then the next one I'm going to do is on Sacred Union on the 23rd of September. And this Sacred Union masterclass really is to unpack how we go from having shitty relationships, both with ourselves and with those around us and our partners, to actually having relationships that thrive on all levels. Now, the 23rd of the 9th is a power day, just as the 23rd of the 7th was. It all relates to Sacred Union, and I'll be delighted to share that with you as well. So these have a minimum cost to make sure you show up, that you're committed to showing up. I know what it's like, and I want to make sure that you will recognize the value of investing in yourselves on any level that you're capable of doing to this point. This takes me to the star piece, self-care, accessing your inner well of infinite joy retreat. So if you haven't heard about this yet and you'd like to spend some physical time with me, for the most part, I show up virtually. I'm living in my own reality here on this earth. I am physical. This is real. But I don't spend a lot of time in that world out there, because I've got a wonderful world that I've created around me, and I'm very happy with it. When I go into London, I don't really like it. When I go into, you know, places where there's dense population, I don't really like it. So I go where I like to go these days. I've earned that. I've co-created it. But every so often, I create a retreat. And the Star Peace Retreat is always as close to the 31st of October as possible. So this one's going to be the 27th to the 29th. And it's in Kent. I found a beautiful, beautiful venue, huge grounds, private lake, beautiful wood fire hot tub, beautiful big room for our yoga, for our sound bar, for all of the healing work. Going to be working with sacred cacao, with magical cacao. You have to get in touch with me to know more about what that is. We're going to be working with self-care and what that actually means for star seeds. The idea is you come and you rest, recuperate, be around your soul tribe, access the star seed consciousness that comes through our star families. We anchor these energies into the grid. So, you know, this is where you get to come and do something for yourself and also do something for the collective, because as you shift your vibration, through being in resonance with those around you, because we're all anchoring the frequency of unity, self-care, and joy. Joy is the highest frequency you can connect with, right? It aligns you with the Thrive paradigm. Then what you're doing is you're taking that through the winter months. You're taking that through to 2024. You're taking that through to the next year when we'll receive the next set of codes. So last year it was the sovereignty codes. This year it's the joy codes, and we're preparing for the 888 Lionsgate, which is when I'm going to run my next retreat, which is in the summer. So let's get to this one first. And as I said, it's your opportunity to be in my physical presence, receive the light language, transmissions that I offer, the channeling, the guidance that comes through from the Star Peace Collective, who are the Intergalactic Super Federation, as I understand it. So if you would like to know more about that, it's £850, which is roughly about $1,000, I would say. It's from Friday 6 p.m. until Sunday 4 p.m. I've got a few slots left, one room which is en suite left. So if you would like to know more, please get in touch ASAP. You can DM me, you can comment. Obviously, if you comment, make sure that I have a way of contacting you. You can join my mailing list on Rosanna Hannis, on Star Peace Consciousness, on RozyGlow, and request more information. It's all over my socials. We're also sending emails out about it. Get in touch quick. Spaces will run out, and I want you to have one if you're feeling the call. If you need a payment plan, let me know. We'll talk about that. For those of you who are more interested in exclusive one-to-one retreats or VIP days, again, you can get in touch, and I offer all sorts depending on your budget. So just let me know, and I'll be delighted to share with you. So I'd love to know how you found this. Please do let me know. It is my joy to, step into these conversations, to dare to tackle them. I know that for me, Star Peace is a reality. I'm living it. I'm here to share it with the world, to sprinkle the stardust to everyone who's ready to receive it, so that we can all embed these codes in our energetic field and in our physical reality, into the crystalline grid, into the mycelium connectedness beneath the surface of the earth, and to spread it across the earth like wildfire. All you have to do is believe it is possible. And just by believing it is possible, it starts to become possible. So thank you so much for joining me. Thank you so much for being here. And, if you have anything that you would like to ask me, anything that you'd like to comment on, please do. Please do subscribe to YouTube channel. Please do join my Facebook community if you haven't already. You can check the text box below, and I'll put the link in for you. Come and join my mailing list. Join me on my socials. And I really hope to see you at the retreat. My next round of Fearless, Loved Up and Limitless, I'm looking to start the 27th of September. So again, do join me for these masterclasses if you're interested in finding out more. And always I make an offer for those who are ready to purchase quickly. So now's the time to start to see whether you need to take a loan out or a credit card or to borrow from a friend. Like, how can you leverage where you are to where you want to be? How can you create the bridge? This is what I had to do, many others had to do. And, going from struggling, for those of you who've been in struggle mode, to thriving doesn't necessarily mean that you haven't got the money. It can mean that you're struggling to believe in yourself, that things can be different in your relationships, in your health, right? Sometimes we're resource rich, but we're actually very poor in terms of our own self-worth and our self-belief and our sense of deserving. So whoever you are, reach out. I'll be delighted to connect with you. Thank you so much for being with me. Take care for now.